Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another very special episode of the Empower Hour, brought to you by the Empower Plant by Fasig Brooks Personal Injury Lawyers. I am Dana Brooks, your host, and I am joined today by my law partners and our Director of PR, Kia Thomas is here. Hey, Kia.
Hi, guys.
We've got Carrie Roan, my law partner here.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah, and we've got Betsy Brown. Betsy's here today.
Hi.
Because we have got one special accomplished lady lawyer on here today. We have got Ms. Lonita Baker. Now, let me tell you something about yourself, Lonita. I've learned some things about you. Make sure these are right. First of all, my dear friend I just had lunch with today, Barbara Walker, and she said she knows you and that you are incoming president of the National Bar Association.
Yes, I am. I take the reins in July, so.
Wow,
that's impressive.
Yeah. Geez. I told her I had you as a guest because I know her.
She's amazing.
But welcome, first of all. You have done so many things. You've been, let's see, goodness, I don't know what that noise was. You are a Louisvillian. Is that how
I am? Lifelong Louisvillian.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I've got some family up there. It's a beautiful country. Beautiful.
It is. I love it. I mean, we just got past Kentucky Derby here in Louisville, so that's
right. That's right.
My parents went. They were there.
Did they? Was this their first time going?
Their first, and they were both in their late 70s, and this was on their bucket list. And so they got all dressed up. And I'm telling you, my mom looked so cute in her little outfit and her little fascinator, and they had a blast. So I'm so glad they went.
I didn't know they went in person. I thought they were at a Derby party. Okay.
No, they went in person. They did the whole thing. And my dad bet on the long shot horse that won, the 81-1 horse, Rich Strike.
Yeah.
And he won like $3,000.
You didn't have to bet that much to get it. Like I always tell people, I wasn't here for Derby. I was in DC. But normally I will bet on the long shot because I mean, you can bet a little bit of money and get a nice return. Like if you bet on the favorite, it's like, oh, it's like 1-to-1. Like,
yeah. I mean, he acted like he's like this seasoned gambler. He's like, well, you always bet on the long shot. The man, I don't think he might have bought a lotto ticket in his life. I don't think he's ever been to Vegas, but all of a sudden he's now the person you go to when you want to know which horse to bet on.
Well, welcome, Lonita. I'm going to tell everybody a little bit about you. You are with a personal injury law firm now, right?
Not anymore. I'm in-house. I'm in-house. I'm an associate corporate counsel for a company called Waystar. But yes, I did a nice part of my career doing plaintiff's personal injury and civil rights.
And you were an assistant Jefferson County attorney.
Yes.
Okay, did that for a while. And then you have an MBA with distinction from University of Louisville. And you, of course, have your law degree. And you've gone really far up the National Bar Association, about to be your incoming president. And you have got all those awards that we always hear about. top 40 under 40, all those presidential awards. But let's talk about what everybody knows you for. And that is your role as co-counsel in the Breonna Taylor case, which is such a sad case. And it happened right when we were shutting down with COVID. So it was almost surreal. Everybody was like, what kind of a world are we living in right now? What is going on? Can you, I don't know what you're comfortable sharing, what you're able to share, but could you tell us a little bit about how you came to be involved in that case and maybe some challenges and what was rewarding about it? But welcome and tell us your story.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you stated, it was right at the beginning of the world being shut down due to COVID. I remember being at home on Friday the 13th of 2020, March 13th, 2020. It was the first day, or maybe a couple of days, where our office had already begun to shift to working remotely. So I was sitting on the couch and working. And I saw a news blip that said, that a police officer had been shot during the execution of a search warrant. And then it said one suspect dead, one suspect was in custody. That was all that was on the news. They didn't go into much additional detail. And then the next morning, I got a call from Sam Aguilar, whose firm I was working at. He was actually in Florida trying to get one last vacation in before being shut down. And he said, hey, the family of the young lady that was killed yesterday has reached out. Do you mind meeting with them? And I'm like, of course, so I set up a meeting with them. Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, came to the office. And so it's Tamika Palmer, 2 of her sisters, her daughter, and then 2 more sisters were on the phone. And so as they began to tell me about Breonna and some of the things that she, just working 2 jobs, that was her first day off, and you learning more about Breonna, and then telling me about what had happened, some of the things that had transpired that night when she was killed, and knowing that the person, they had known that her ex-boyfriend, Jamarcus Glover, had already been in custody because he called them while he was inside one of the police cars. He heard them saying the Springfield address, and he's like, why are you all going there? And he heard them say, oh, it doesn't matter, she's dead or something. And so it was just, so he reached out to the mom also and was like, what's going on? I was I was already in custody. So not really understanding, but it goes to the heart of kind of this war on drugs. And with Black men, a lot of times we see, I was a prosecutor for a long time. Before I was a prosecutor, I actually did criminal defense too. I began my legal career as a public defender. And you see people go to attack or try to apprehend a suspect in drug cases by putting pressure on a girlfriend or mother, those relatives. And it happens so frequently. And it's just one of those practices that really need to change, especially if your research isn't up to date. That's my food.
Go get you some food.
Right. I just remembered I got to put mine on Do Not Disturb too. So I'm glad yours rang because it reminded me to do that.
I'm not going to do that because if I do, I'll never take it off. It'll kill me.
Sounds
I
like
think I finally, Carrie, stopped getting your voicemails.
we fixed that problem.
Carrie's been telling people I'm her receptionist. And they all messages.
That works out. Are you guys
Hey,
switching offices now?
Dana's a good caller screener, that's for sure.
Right.
Like calling.
Yeah, where are you today? I haven't seen you in the office. I miss you. Where are you?
I'm in St. Petersburg. My niece graduates tomorrow. So we got on the road at like 4 o'clock this morning because I was like, children will be asleep, so I don't have to worry about changing diapers.
Ooh. Yeah, you don't wake them up.
Not at all.
Amazing what we have to do to juggle jobs with family and kids and 4 o'clock in the morning getting on the road and how pleasant that is.
Exactly.
When we were all younger, we'd be coming home at 4 o'clock in the morning, not
right. Right.
Oh my gosh.
Well, Anita, where were you in your story? I want to get us back on track.
I was talking about the police officers had the person that they were looking for, he was already in custody. So I was meeting with the parent, with Breonna's family, and as I'm learning more about the situation and hearing them from my time as a prosecutor, being familiar with some of the officers and knowing that they may not have followed the rules and policies that were in place. At a minimum, I let Sam know that, we need to do more investigation. And I committed to Breonna's family that we would, do additional investigation, try to figure out exactly what happened and help where we could. One thing, it's always hard because when families of people who are murdered by police or victims of civil rights violations, many people think they're there for the money, and really they want people to be held accountable. Right. They want to know what happened. And so I at that point, I let the family know, have that hard discussion. Like, I'm going to do everything that I can within my wheelhouse, which is from a civil perspective, and to help fact find and get everything. But when it comes to criminal charges, those are out of my hand. And so, but still thinking, if we do the fact finding that we need to do, and prosecutors get the information, get the facts that we're able to utilize from getting experts and investigators and just everything that we do from a civil perspective to work up a case, if we could share that information with prosecutors. I think on some end, I felt that maybe this will, be different if they get the information that they need. But the case went rather quickly. We filed the lawsuit actually towards the end of April. And we were strategic, as lawyers and doing personal injury, most civil rights cases, you're going to immediately file in federal court. But you guys know when you file in federal court, there's a long delay. You got to wait for the Rule 12 hearing to do evidence, to issue subpoenas. So we filed in state court. And that was a strategic move, knowing that if we didn't settle the case, we would have eventually gone to federal court. But we wanted to be able to send subpoenas and do this, just start to gather evidence that we didn't want to wait on. They're knocking on the door.
Okay, go.
That's funny. Last time we did these when I had to host last week, Dana, Jimmy came in my office like 3 times. Are you on the phone? I'm like, Jimmy, I'm doing a power hour. Are you on the phone? I'm like, Jimmy, I'm doing it.
Barry, were you there when my kids joined the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm taking my
Jimmy gets
shake
in the
out. I'm
zone.
gonna at least start my shake while we're here.
I think I have you, Baker.
No, he
And
gets in the
so-
zone when he's thinking about something, Carrie. You can tell how else did he forget me at Busy Bee? I'm like, we had a robust conversation for like an hour 15. You don't notice that I'm not here? He's just singularly focused. It's all right.
Hey, it's the Busy Bee though.
Yeah, I mean, of all places to get left, that wasn't horrible.
Right.
Get all your Christmas shopping done.
It's not as good as Buc-ee's. Man.
Yeah, I've heard Buc-ee's is good. Oh, that's right. We did go to Buc-ee's.
We stopped at Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
Anita,
What is Buc-ee's?
I was gonna say we're trying to give you a chance to drink that milkshake.
Yeah,
as you
I
can
know.
see.
What is Buc-ee's? So I want to know, what is Buc-ee's?
Well, Buc-ee's has shakes. Buc-ee's has Buc-ee's like Bumblebee on steroids.
It's like the largest gas station rest stop you could ever imagine, like
it has
a
everything.
Walmart sized rest stop.
Yeah.
But
my
it's down in like South Louisiana, South Alabama. I don't know if it would go up as far as where you are. It doesn't come over
They
to
have it
Florida.
in Georgia. They have it in Georgia too.
Yeah, they got clothes.
So maybe like
they
kind of
got-
that panhandle area,
Mhm.
Georgia, Louisiana.
Yep.
Nice.
I bought a hat and earrings.
I have to look for a Buc-ee's next time although the older, like, when you were younger, you do road trips in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
The older I've gotten, I'm like, yeah, let me just get on the plane and save the
Mhm.
time. Like, I want my time back. So
Yes.
That's exactly right. What do you do? We'll get back to the case, but how do you spend your time now? You said you've kind of gone into a different career. What do you do now?
yeah, so right now I am in-house counsel. I do reading contracts, reviewing contracts. I support the marketing team, a sales team, and our IT. So it's weird, but our company does technology for healthcare payment systems. So, look, from the PI side, when we're talking like hospitals, have you submitted the claims? Have you done this? Da, da, da. We're that kind of third party that helps hospital systems or in doctor's offices submit claims to insurance and Medicaid, Medicare. It's a lot different.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, like, I needed it after everything that 2020 and 2021 was. I kind of needed that, like, I needed to decompress.
Yeah.
And so kind of taking care of myself as a person first, like in personal injury world, you get so caught up in fighting for your clients that, and you get this emotional attachment to your clients, as you all know. And sometimes you put your clients before you, and it's hard to get that good balance. So I had to step away for a little bit.
I have a really good friend of mine that does, she trains judges on how to deal with child dependency issues and cases, and she does it all around the country. And she told me last week that there's something called, I think it's called compassion fatigue or compassion exhaustion, where you just take on so much of everybody else's pain and hurt and agony and problems. And all of a sudden you're fatigued and exhausted and you need a break and you can't figure out why. Well, I finally figured out that it's compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
That's very real, Carrie. I learned about that in schools. And there's actually like there was a network called like Green Cross that are helpers who help helpers. So they who are suffering from that. Like they showed up at the like 9/11 when the towers came down, or the earthquakes and stuff, because believe it or not, people who help people, they can end up with some serious mental health issues because they're just receiving everything and they don't have any way to get rid of it. So it's good for you to care for yourself. And
I think generally us as women, we take on that compassion even more, especially, like you take Breonna's case, like her mom and I are still like, we're really good friends. We still talk almost every
your life
day.
Forever.
Yeah, she's going to be in my life forever, but it's like, you want to absorb some of the things that are coming towards them. You want to absorb it for them, because she shouldn't have to deal with some of the things that are coming simply because she wants justice for her daughter. So I think just as a mother, as a woman, I just think women generally are more compassionate and have that more empathetic. We're more empathetic than some of our male counterparts, especially in this legal profession.
I would have to agree. Let me get to my panel real quick, because I don't want to hog all your time. We're so happy to have you here, and I know everybody's got major questions. Kia, let's start with you.
So I want to thank you for definitely being on here. I was so excited when we were able to get you. My question is more so after the case, considering that our firm is very community based. We try to make sure that we stay deeply rooted in the community, and the things that we do are very intentional. So I'm just wondering, especially since you're based in Louisville, how is the community now after all of this? Are there any initiatives that are being put into place, to stop the whole you have the protect and serve, but it's more so I have this badge, and that's how a lot of people view it. They feel as though they have the badge, so they have all this authority. Yeah. So what things are being put into place in order to pull the community and, the police department together? Because we want that, I guess you can call it that sweet spot to where everybody can figure out how to get.
Where police officers feel safe and the community feels safe.
We want everybody to go home at night, So how is the community right now?
Yeah, you got to restore that trust. What's been going on towards that in your why don't you let us know kind of what happened? Like you had the civil side, but there was also a trial against a criminal trial against these officers, and let us know kind of how that happened and then how the community responded.
Absolutely.
So the Attorney General's office, so our local prosecutor recused himself. The Attorney General only indicted one officer. It was for wanton endangerment, and it was for shooting into a neighbor's apartment, not Breonna's apartment.
That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah, it wasn't, my former prosecutor self-called BS on it. The jurors came out later and was like, we wanted to indict more officers, and we wanted to indict for more serious charges. And just that whole scenario of how the indictment came out, I knew from day one that the prosecutors were not necessarily going to put their all into getting a conviction for the one officer that they did charge. And Hankinson was not convicted. There's still a federal investigation pending. So on the day after the 2-year anniversary, March 14th, we went up to Washington, D.C. To meet with Kristen Clark, the deputy or assistant attorney general for the Office of Civil Rights. They're still investigating. They don't, if you've ever dealt with the federal government, they don't give you a lot of information, but they give you a little bit just so you can say, well, I think that their investigation is not just as it relates to Breonna Taylor, but it's going to be when they come out with something. There's also a patterns and practice investigation going on by the DOJ too. So I think it's going to be much more encompassing of the department as a whole and their failures and systemic failures that led to the death of Breonna. We still have the officer that lied on the search warrant, that it's known that he lied. They all lost their jobs, but he lied on the search warrant, perjury, presented it to a judge. He's not been indicted for that yet. I keep saying yet because I'm hoping that we really get some semblance of justice from the Department of Justice. So part of our settlement, of course, there was the monetary settlement, which was $12 million. We also negotiated some items of police reform. So one was utilizing an early warning system so that departments could be on notice of officers who may pose a danger to the community and do something about them much sooner. I think that had that been in place, some of the officers involved in Breonna's murder would not have been continued to be officers. We've had some community policing initiatives in that settlement. So encouraging officers to volunteer. You can use paid time to volunteer in the communities in which you serve, knowing that if you know the people you are patrolling, like just that relationship, you're less likely to see them as a threat or a danger.
That's right.
And then some allowances and incentives to move into the neighborhoods as well. My understanding is no officers have necessarily taken advantage of that incentive yet, but hopefully, at some point in the future that does happen. So we really did. And then also sending social workers out on some calls. That was part of our. So we really were trying to look at what are some of the things that people are calling for when it comes to reimagining public safety, and let's try to get these worked into the negotiations. Luckily, the mayor's office was open to those negotiations, and we did have a good range of reform that was put in place, and they've been taking steps to implement those policies. Community-wise, we just had our primary election a couple of days ago, and when I tell you, like, the number of people who were just engaged enough to run for office, some people, winning, some people putting up numbers that you never would imagine of candidates. And I think what that showed, even the favorite candidates, like if a favorite candidate only won by 1,000 votes, that lets you know that, like, we're on you. And so they have to have some sense of accountability to the community, because if they don't, the next time we're going to get enough votes to replace you. So, I think that the quickest way to change the way public safety operates now is through the electoral process, through the legislative process. And so I'm just excited that the community, they are still engaged. They're still working. And like, I saw some people get upset, like, oh, my candidate for mayor didn't win. And it was like, hey, but keep going. We never would have thought we would be this far. So, so it's great to see. One thing that I noticed during the duration of, especially at the height of the media attention to Breonna's case, and Breonna and George Floyd's case was going on at the same time, I would go out to some of the protests or some of the I don't know, like they would gather they called it Justice Square. So I would go out and interact with the community, and I realized they truly were listening to what I would say on the news. So it made me more cognizant of what I was saying and how I was messaging it, and also giving them their true talking points. Because I don't know about you guys, but I would always be frustrated when I'm seeing, civil rights cases on TV and people like telling the mayor to charge the cops. I'm like, no, the mayor doesn't charge. So, like, I'm saying, if you want someone to charge, you got to be it's the attorney general. Or like, I was giving those direct, like, here's the call out, so that they had those talking points when they're protesting, because that's one thing you have to be in. If you're going to truly change by protest, you have to know what you're protesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's interesting. But Betsy, what are your thoughts and questions?
Okay, so first, now Lonita's from the Lou, and she's obviously proud. So do you know Nellie?
No, so St. Louis in Louisville. I'm like Jack Harlow, and who else is from Louisville?
Wait a minute.
Bryson Tiller.
He's from
Nellie's from St. Louis and not Louisville?
St. Louis, yeah.
Oh.
You thought the Lou was Louisville?
But Betsy, I have met Nellie. He was in Louisville a few years ago for Derby. He's really short. He is really short, and I'm a big Nellie fan too, so I get it. I'm with you, like, but when I saw him, I was so excited because I had done, it was when I was in private practice, and I had helped like negotiate the contract, and so I was helping the party promoter at Derby time, and so I'm like excited to meet him, and he walked in, and I was like, but wait, he's short. but I'm still a big fan of his music.
You know, I'm not even embarrassed. I'm not even embarrassed because that's a great story.
Yeah.
She pulled it all together for you, so that works out.
No, I'd like, so my question is to you, like, how did you decide when and what to say about your pending litigation in the public sphere, talking to media and things like that? Like, did you have
That's
somebody
an
guiding
excellent
you?
question.
Great question.
Yeah.
PR wise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd you handle media?
Yeah. So one thing I'll tell you is the media has no regard to lawyers having to do legal work. Like all day, every day, it was like, we want to talk to you. Can you be available in 5 minutes? And it's like, no. And then so I did not have a PR person for some of the press releases that we sent out, you know, eventually. So we filed suit in April. In May, Ben Crump, nationally known civil rights attorney, joined our case.
From Tallahassee?
He's our colleague.
He's the guy.
We worked with him for years.
Yes. So he was, so he has a PR firm. So occasionally he would, they would pull together the things that we needed to send out. So like media advisories, things like that. But when it came to the interviews, we initially thought Ben would be the media person. I learned quickly. So Ben was brought in the week after Mother's Day. So mid-May. And then George Floyd was murdered Memorial Day weekend.
Oh my goodness.
And so Ben got pulled away to George Floyd. And I learned quickly that the media doesn't want to hear from two people. I mean, from one person on two different cases. So they were talking to Ben about George Floyd. And so I was like, oh, so I had, and Sam, Sam was truly the unsung hero of that case, like pushing it in the background, like dishing out subpoenas and all the discovery that you need to know, and the talking to witnesses, and like giving us the information so that as we're going on the news cycle, like I'm like, okay, this is okay. So we did not have a gag order. They tried to do a gag order, but the judge was like, yeah, no, we're not, you know. And then so we could pretty much talk about anything, but I was more so I was putting out information that I thought was sufficient to the case, but also being mindful of our city. Like, so when George Floyd was murdered, I saw everything, you know, going down and this and that. And so I would give people the talking points of these officers can be fired and here's why they can, here's the statute, like. And so to go back to that's one of the ways I knew that people were listening to what I was saying in the news. It's because when I went to the Injustice Square one day, one of the protesters came up and he said, the mayor was just here and he was saying that why he couldn't fire the officers, but I heard you on the news and I told him da 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 da, and you know, I was like, oh, like they was really listening. So I started to craft it to. But one thing as attorneys, I treated the media the same way I would do a jury. I was not going to embellish anything. I was not going to promise something that we didn't have. It was not guessing anything. Like if I was asked something that I didn't know, I had no problem like, let me just change the topic and talk about, you know, use one of my talking points. But I made sure to never say anything that would come back to bite me in the rear. You know, because it was just too big of a case.
Yeah.
Now,
but I mean, did that stress you out? Like, what if what if you get misconstrued, or what if your words are taken out of context, or what if you're not quoted correctly?
Did you have experience doing that when you were a prosecutor? Did you have to deal with the press much, or was this your first throw you in the deep end experience?
So this was my first throw me in the deep end experience. Prosecutor, only the elected officer would do the interviews. You know, when they were prosecutor. Now, when Ben was president of National Bar Association, I was his chief of communications. So I was adept to writing, but that was for 1 year. Like I would write his press releases or his talking points on a specific thing, but to do a case from beginning to end, that was definitely the first time. And I will say, especially for the attorneys that are watching, high profile cases are not fun. I was always the person who's like, I don't want to be part of a case that's on TV because of the stress of not wanting people to misconstrue what you're saying. You don't like, and so I always had the fear that someone would misinterpret what I said or twist my words. So I always tried to make it very simple in what I was saying, but I also made it a point to, you know, a lot of protesters and a lot of organizations were involved in pushing Breonna's case to the media too. So I always made myself available to them to ask questions to me because I didn't want them putting the wrong information out there either. And I have to say that, you know, I was thankful to work with people like Tamika Mallory and even Sean King, who would ask me before that, like, is this correct? Because, you know, like they understood that getting something wrong. And there were many times that like Tamika Mallory has way more social media followers than I would ever have. So if she saw people getting something wrong, she would do a live and say, this is what it is. People quit saying this, like quit saying that she was in her bed when she was shot.
Right.
Oh, did she freeze? There we go.
Oh, there she is, she's back.
She's back.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Am
Yeah,
I back? Okay, yeah.
that's got to be maddening to watch things that are just totally no basis in reality get printed or get attributed to people, and you're just like, oh my God, I could do nothing else but correct misinformation all day. You know? So it's there's a delicate balance to know what you just let go and what you chase down and correct. But I guess that's true in life generally. Carrie, you've been very patient. What are your thoughts and questions today?
Oh, I just see my lights off in here. So I would like to, if you can indulge me, I want to switch the topic just a little bit to the National Bar Association, because a lot of us are familiar with the American Bar Association, but the National Bar Association is the kind of the African-American counterpart, right? It's the American Bar Association. And so I imagine that being a woman in that organization, there's very few women there, right? And
we have a lot of women, but I will tell you, I'm going to be the 80th president in July, and I will only be the 15th woman president.
Well, that's actually pretty good. 15 women is pretty good. I think it's, you know, I think that's impressive.
We got an 80 though. We gotta, you know, we
gotta step up, right? So I'm wondering, you know, what you do. So this is a women's empowerment show and a women's empowerment group. And, you know, obviously you're a minority and you're a female. And so you've got so much against you already, it seems like. So what are you doing with your organization, and what do you plan to do with your presidency of it to kind of promote more women empowerment and more respect for women in our profession? Because it's very hard to be a female lawyer. It's very hard to be an African-American female lawyer in our profession. So I'm just wondering if you have any initiatives for that would be interesting to talk about.
So we have a very strong women lawyers division within the National Bar Association, and they have a mentoring program that has been going on for the last 2 years, and it's primarily targeted towards law students, but just being able to be in that circle of Black women attorneys. I always tell people, like, it's one thing to be an attorney, it's one thing to be a woman attorney, and then it's a whole nother thing to be a Black woman attorney. And so being able to learn from some of the best females in the legal profession, just how to carry yourself or command the attention of a room, and how to walk in your, like, be comfortable in your space. When we go into a deposition room, don't let them, you know, kind of put you to the side or not let you command the room, but like just to be comfortable in doing that. And I think it's just being around each other. Coming up on 100 years. We were founded in 1925. So we're coming up on 100 years. And again, I'm still the 15th woman president. Our first female president was in 1981. And so to know that from then to now, and it's still only 15 women, and I'm like, but we kick butt. One thing I will say is I'm walking into the presidency after helping some of the stronger male presidents. And so I do have to commend those men for seeing something in me and pushing me, because I was just like, I don't want to be president. Like, no, I'm fine. And they're like, but you do the work. Like you've made all of us look good. Now you need to do it, like be president, because basically you've done the work. So take ownership. And I think sometimes we do need those men to push us into that greatness too, because we're so used to, women make men look good all the time.
Yes.
Power hour.
Exactly.
So do you, so not only are you a Black woman, but you're a Black female attorney, but then you weren't prosecuting, but you were bringing a case, a civil rights case against a bunch of police officers in white America in a time where we had a lot of division, with the Trump administration and everything going on with that and with George Floyd. And I imagine that, oh no, did we lose her? Oh, there you are. Okay. I just imagine that, you probably face, this is a very white male dominated industry, the law, right? And generally speaking, I think law enforcement is also a white male dominated industry. So I'm wondering if you ever faced any type of unique challenges as a Black female lawyer in that case.
In the case, I will say probably being a Black female attorney allowed me to fly under the radar. I looked at some of the things that both Sam and Ben went through, and I'm like, and even like getting called out or getting like cease and desist letters, quit saying my name, or I'm gonna sue you for defamation. I didn't get any of that. And I'm like, well, I guess it's good to be invisible sometimes. So I flew under the radar in terms of that magnitude. But then I say I flew under the radar in that magnitude, but then I also flew under the radar. Some people don't even know who Lonita Baker is. That was, the primary face of the Breonna Taylor case in terms of the legal team. So it's kind of a double edge on that. But just in general, I've had the same experience I'm sure you ladies have had, and especially as a prosecutor, I primarily had police officers trying to question me on what the law is. I'm like, if I can't do anything else, I can read. And I would say again, I've been fortunate enough. I can read. I thought I know what shall versus may means, but
Right.
I've been fortunate enough to really have supervisors, management, whether male or female, to truly back me up. But it is, I guess that probably took time. For people to really get to know me, see my work ethic, see my skill set, and like, oh, she really knows what she's doing. So it's at a point to where now I'm like, I can show you better than I can tell you. Yeah. So I just let my work speak for itself.
That's awesome. I love that.
Kia, what are you thinking about? Any more questions you've got of our esteemed guest here today?
When we were talking earlier, I started thinking about, of course, I go into the PR world and thinking, did you have anyone prepping you before you went into some of these speaking engagements, we'll call them, or when you were called to, step up to the mic to talk about the actual case? Because a lot of times I think that's what's missing. And without that prep, or if you did have the prep, who was helping you? Let me start there, and then I'll go a little further.
I didn't have a professional PR.
No.
She'll be back. She's on her shake.
Okay, I'm back now. I know, it's the hotel internet. I'm sorry. When I'm at home, I hardwire into everything now because I'm like, I hate that. But so I didn't have professional PR prepping, but it would be a lot of Sam, myself, and being really focusing on what is the message that we want to get out there, and making sure it's always I tell anyone, you don't give a speech, you don't do a press conference, and you don't do an interview without having a goal of what you want to come out of that, that engagement. So I think that just comes from, I don't know if it's from speaking to a jury, being a trial attorney.
It is.
And I treated, like I said, I treated the media like it was my big jury. So
yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Betsy, you got any thoughts or questions?
It looks like it.
I mean, where to begin? I mean, we've covered Nellie, so we'll move on to the next big thing. But so you have this illustrious litigation career, and now you're doing something very different. You're in-house counsel, and so my question is, do you miss it? Do you miss the litigation, and even with the stress and the compassion fatigue?
There it is.
Okay, I'm sorry. I missed a little bit. So it was my trial career. And were you gonna say, do I miss the litigation world?
Yeah.
I do. I do. And I would be lying if I said I didn't. But I am getting adjusted to the transactional world. And I always say, like, who knows what the future holds? Like, not that I don't like bouncing around necessarily, but I love the law so much, and there's so much out there to do in the legal profession.
Yes.
So, but at the time that I made the move, I definitely needed to do it for self. And then, because then I'm looking like, oh, I'm going to be taking over the NBA. I'm going to be doing this. I'm like, oh, clients that let me. I have one client now. Well, my internal clients, but one client.
Right. That's a lot different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there's power in being underestimated a little bit, to your point earlier about flying under the radar?
Absolutely, there's power in being underestimated, because people prepare as if they're underestimating, and then you just come in and you're like, and then they don't know what hit them at the end of it, and that's like,
right.
I love that. I think that's a superpower. I love that. And I feel like I've been underestimated most of my life, and it's what drives me to work so hard now and just try to kick as much butt as I can in a very unassuming way. So it's kind of fun to be underestimated.
It is fun. And you know what it's taught me? It's taught me not to underestimate anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So I've had so I had a child when I was 15 years old. So it started even before I became an attorney. You know, I was the great student. I was, between the summer of 8th grade and 9th grade, doing stuff I didn't have any business doing. Dance program, I get pregnant at 14. I had my daughter at 15. But like I didn't tell anyone until I was 6 months. And it wasn't that I necessarily told anyone. My mom was like, well, we're going to the hospital because you're either pregnant or you have a tumor. So one of the two. But I can't let it get me to the hospital and figure out what it is. So, but, from that point on, like I got all of the, oh, well, she was smart, but now what's she going to do? Or, people who didn't want their children to hang around with me because I was, I had a child, or, trying to send me to a different school, like for teenage mothers. But I'm like, I'm an advanced program. Like, I'm not going to get that same education if I go there. So, and they were like, well, you can stay, but know that you have to. And so I was like, okay, bet I can, so like, I gave birth spring break of my freshman year. I missed one whole week of school, and then I was back in school. So
get her done.
Wow.
I bet nobody talked to the child's father like that.
Okay, I froze
Absolutely
again.
not.
Yeah. So from that point,
I bet nobody had a problem with their kids hanging out with him.
Yeah,
Not at all.
no, of course not. But so it's been since that point, I've always been like, I can show people like, oh, you think I'm not going to make it? So graduated on time, full, scholarship, and just continuing to go. That's just been kind of the way I've operated.
I didn't know that about you, but I'm not surprised to learn about your grit. You seem a little gritty.
Yeah.
You do, absolutely.
Comeback stronger story right there.
That's impressive. I was about to say, I mean, you were a baby who had a baby, and you had to figure out how to grow up and raise a baby in high school and college and law school. And I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty good motivation.
Yeah. And so my child was my motivation, my not wanting to disappoint my mom, because she was a huge support. So, and then like on some end, there's that, people were looking at, I felt like people were looking at my mom like it was her fault, and it wasn't. So it was like, I'm gonna show them for her too,
Yeah.
So
I get that. I got that all day long. I wanted to tell you, Betsy, real quick. This impressive lawyer also served as chief of communications for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
I omitted that little fact. Isn't that interesting?
yeah.
Yeah, she was saying
Y'all
earlier
have
that
some
she
things in
did.
common.
Yeah, she was
Right.
saying earlier that she did a lot of Ben Crump's press releases. So I'm sure Betsy is handling a rather large case right now. So I'm sure she can get some tidbits from you.
Yeah, dealing with
Run. No, I'm
lawyers
joking.
don't usually.
Run.
I'll call you, girl.
Go ahead. Feel free.
Yeah.
Feel free.
I
Betsy,
can't
she
run,
just
it's
said
too
run.
late.
She said run.
I can't, it's too late.
Too late.
I want to ask you something. When this was going on with this, when you were representing Breonna Taylor and you were in the media and stuff, what was the negative backlash? Did you get any threats? Did you get any nastiness? What was the ugly side of it?
One person was doing crazy stuff on their social media. I will tell you, one night, it was probably like 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, who's that? Somebody rings my door and I'm like, oh, it's the police. So I like call my friend, like I'm talking on the phone to my friend and it turns out, well, they say they went to the wrong address, but after that, I was like, I called Sam. I was like, Sam, will you make sure, because he had the scanner app. I'm like, make sure that they really did get a call over here and they didn't just come knock on my door. But I will say it was way more positive than negative. Like my neighbors were very protective and I did get the cameras put around the house just cause you don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know if the firm filtered out negative emails, but I didn't get a lot. So
I'm glad to hear that. I'm
Yeah.
very glad to hear that. That's encouraging. Carrie, I've cut you short a little bit today. What are your questions or thoughts for our guests?
Well, so when I want to go back to the baby having a baby thing, because I think that's so compelling about your story. I mean, you're this uber successful trial lawyer and, with Breonna's case and with now being the president of the National Bar Association. But going back to that time in your life, you were clearly a fighter and clearly very smart. So I assume you had a good support system of help though, because you otherwise, had to go to school with a baby. And was it your mom that helped or what was your support system like? And then how did you kind of emotionally at that young of age, like prop yourself up to keep going?
I don't know how I did it. Like now I look back and I don't know emotionally how I did it, or if it was just that you have to do it. Like, I think it's one of those, this is what you have to do. So suck it up and do it, which is what.
She's going
to take that break. My mom was my biggest support system. I always tell people though, he was working things out. So my brother's girlfriend at the time, my brother's 5 years older than me. His girlfriend at the time was pregnant with my niece. She was actually due at the beginning of May or mid-May. She was due mid-May. I had my daughter in April 10th. Like I said, spring break, had missed the week, whatever. She went 2 weeks overdue. So she would watch her, like when I went back to school, because my mom worked. So when I went back to school, she was already on maternity leave. So she would watch her, while she was pregnant on maternity leave. She went 2 weeks overdue and didn't have my niece until May 31st when school was out. So I'm like, if that's not divine intervention. So like we had the summer and by the end of the summer, she could go to daycare.
That is awesome. That's that whole village concept.
It is. It does take a village. And I love how women surround women and we all help each other out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you need it, you find it. Whatever it is,
Absolutely.
whatever your priorities in your life, you make things happen. Women do. I see it every day.
Well, I was about to say, women make things happen and women can find it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's amazing what we do when we help each other. And that's why I said, like, I love you guys have Empower Hour, the mentoring program I talked about for the National Bar Association. It's called We Empower. So
wow.
I love it. Empowering's hot right now and coaching's hot right now. And I think it's because people realize you do get by with a little help from your friends. Yeah. Reach out, ask for the help, get the mentors, get the awareness, get all that stuff. I want to ask you my final question before I go around for everybody else's, and that is, who was Breonna, your client? who was this young woman who lost her life in a scary way. Those last seconds of her life must have been terrorizing. And she was somebody's, sister and daughter. And, she's a real person. So I'd like to hear about her, and then ask you about how the victim blaming part of it motivated you as her lawyer. Because that's the first thing you hear about when somebody is killed by law enforcement is, well, they were trash anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So Breonna she was the life of the party. She, like, when she walked into a room, she would light it up. She was the person that was always getting family together, scheduling the family get-togethers. Her favorite game was Phase 10. So she loved game night, movies, but she was a worker. She worked 2 jobs. She was the caretaker. She loved taking care of. The reason she went into the medical field is because from a young age, her grandmother, and it's crazy, her grandmother's name is Juanita, which is my mother's name, Juanita. And my daughter's name is Deanna. So it was so much like, it's just like, and just Breonna was just the universe, yeah. But her grandmother had diabetes, and so she would always help her grandmother take her sugar levels and stuff, and so that really got her interested in the medical profession at an early age. The working 2 jobs is kind of like, that's what their family, like, I know that her mom is, works, she does, she's in the medical profession too. She does dialysis, and it's just, they moved to Louisville from Grand Rapids just to get a new lease on life. Let's move out of Michigan and go to Kentucky. When you to know her is to love her. Like, and I don't even know her, but I know her, right? In terms of the victim blaming, it was hard for them, and that was one of the. I was actually thankful that we had, at least 2 months before Breonna's case became a media sensation to actually investigate and work up our case. Everything that the police tried to throw out there against her, it was like, yeah, no, oh, she was fired from EMS because she was still in medication. No, she wasn't. She quit. Here's the email string of her quitting because she had a job at the hospital. So it's like, we had so many things. So it really worked against them, and they were trying. And I think that's ultimately what led to the city being like, we need to settle this case because it's not getting better. Every time we think we have something, we don't really have it. And this truly was a 26-year-old woman who, was working 2 jobs, getting ready to buy, her home. They, like, on the search warrant, they didn't even have the right car down. So like, anything that they could say, it's like, you really were not looking at. So it's so many things that even, so I think I see your head like turn to the side, like they had the car wrong. But yes, the wrong car, wrong color.
Well, they went to your house in the wrong house to your house. What the heck, man?
Yeah. So it's just we have to get out of the police office. The police officers won't change until they begin to be held accountable, and they're not going to be held accountable so long as we allow them to victim shame.
We got to have real change, because right now there's not any trust, and so they're not able to do their jobs effectively. I'm dealing with a particular case I'm thinking of, and this young man was shot, and nobody trusts the police to talk to him. So this poor mother is having a real hard time getting answers, and it's because nobody trusts anybody, and that's not good. That makes us less safe. And so we got to go back. Well, I can get on a soapbox on this all day long. Okay, done. That's another show. Let's go around our panel for our closing comments and remarks today. Kia, let's start with you.
I just want to say again, thank you for being on the show. And then kind of, we've been talking about mentorship and all that great stuff. What did you always know that you wanted to be an attorney?
So from a young age, yes. And then someone convinced me, like, you don't want to be a lawyer. There's too many, you won't get a job. And so when I was in high school, I thought I was going to be a teacher. In my senior year of high school, I wanted to do physical therapy. My sophomore year, no, not sophomore, second semester freshman year, I was in that biology class, and I was like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work.
Now I asked that because I have of course, working now in the orbit of all law and everything else, I'm also starting to meet younger girls that are now saying, I want to be a lawyer. So what would you tell them in regards to how they need to start out their career or, keep going? Because it almost kind of reminds me of sports, with the law side. Women and girls drop out of sports way quicker than men do. And then you have women that will then drop out of the law side. And we talked about it because of that whole compassion that we hold. And I see it on our attorneys' faces because they love our clients so hard, and so do we. And then we try to hurry up and fix it, especially on the marketing and PR side, because we're like, what can we do to fix this, So what would you tell that girl that once she gets in to never quit, or what would be your, inspirational or motivational part to that, to keep her going so she doesn't quit? Because like I say, we quit sports. We drop out of the legal side quick too. So
hey, become a mama in your teenage years. That'll make you want to quit. That'll make you can't do anything. What is the motivation? What do you tell people?
I think it's just, you have to truly follow what makes you happy and what you're passionate about. So if you're truly passionate about the law, do it. Like it's the most rewarding thing. Like it's hard. Our jobs are hard. Law school's hard. But I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. I like, even as much as I talked about how hard it was going through, 2020 and 2021, I wouldn't change that experience and the impact. Like I worked a case that had a tremendous impact on the world, not just like my city, but the world. And so that's rewarding in and of itself, like whether people know me or not, it's just the being able to change something and get a conversation started. That's the reward for me. So it's just that if you're passionate about it, it's hard, but and you guys know, when you get a good outcome for your client, there's not that much more, like,
it's the best.
That's pretty good.
So awesome. From the littlest, good day recovery to the biggest good day recovery. It's also wonderful. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kia, go to law school. Just make sure you have your replacement in line before you do it.
Well, I have a good village, so I'm gonna be like, so Dana, your night, right?
Yeah.
your night. Betsy, don't.
No, you need to do it. You need to do it. You've got the passion and the intellect, and you can go change the world. So nothing to it but to do it, as Mr.
Just do it.
Right.
Join the 2% of us other Black attorneys.
That's all it is.
Females that are attorneys.
You're the next. You're going to be another female president of the National Bar Association. Hey, listen, I did the math. If they had their first one in 1981, and they've had as many as you said, like 18, you said?
I will be the 15.
15. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's still in the 40-something percentile of women since they've started doing it. I don't imagine a lot of organizations that large could say that.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's awesome. Betsy, what do you want your final comments and questions to be?
Well, I love this conversation. I feel like
other than your cell phone number, so you can text her.
right? Just so we can hang out and listen to Nellie.
Yes.
No, I mean, listen, what you said about
road trip to St. Louis.
Police having to, like, they're not going to change until they're held accountable. Yeah. And it's that idea of cultures have to change to fit the law and not the other way around.
Right.
And I think for so long there's been so many exceptions made, and looking past things that have happened and giving a pass to these cops that have been negligent, careless, and lives have been lost. And yeah, you get to look at yourself in the mirror and say, you know what, I was part of that.
Yeah.
And a big part of it. And so it's an honor to meet you. You're an empowered, badass lawyer. And I think, one of the best guests we've ever had. So thank you.
Thank you.
You've certainly inspired me. Carrie.
Yeah, I mean, Betsy just said it all. It's really an honor to meet you. And I mean, you could retire now and just be happy for the rest of your life, because you had the penultimate case and you did such a great thing for society and for, humanity. And hopefully we are seeing a change as a result of this case and the George Floyd cases and the other cases. But my one thing that I wanted to say is I love how you use the press to your advantage. And in my former career, I worked at a defense firm, and we defended the city of Tallahassee in a police case where they had hired a girl to act as an informant. She turned state's evidence, and she got killed in the line of duty, and they just completely botched the job using this girl to try to set up a big drug dealer or whatever. And we represented the city, and the plaintiff's lawyer killed us in the press. Killed us. Yeah, Lance Block killed us in the press. And I was reading some articles before this about how you guys utilize the press to your advantage. And I mean, and now with social media, look at what's happening in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. I mean, they're killing it in the press and social media.
Yeah,
so
we've got to get him on the show.
I'm just like,
if I could get Lonita Baker, I'm getting Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Right?
Did her attorneys not look at the evidence, or were they just like, we're billing per hour, so we're going to trial?
Yeah. No.
They're like,
All her attorney said is, this is gonna hurt, sweetheart.
Well,
they're like holding their head in their hands, like, oh my God. I mean, I can't even believe, she'll pass them notes and they don't even look at the notes. I can't even. But I just
we laugh because we've been in that situation.
We all have, yes.
we could have a whole podcast just about that trial. That would be fun.
That's a good idea.
Wear a news jacket. Let's
I'll
do it.
come back for that. I'll come back.
Yeah.
But
We'll
Lonita,
have a whole panel of everybody interested in it. It'll be like the Brady Bunch times a million. Everybody will be like, I want to be heard on this.
It's so cool, y'all. Lonita, I don't know if you were the one that did this, but Oprah Winfrey gave her cover to Breonna for the first time in the history of the O magazine.
I didn't know that.
Winfrey wasn't on it. Yeah.
I did not know that.
That's
She's
huge.
never done that.
I have a copy
never
of it.
steps down.
So I was in the room when Oprah called Breonna's mom, but I was kind of like, put it on speakerphone. But I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want Oprah to hang up. But I said,
right?
Thinking she called a bunch of crazy women.
I'm speechless. I mean, there's Jesus and then there's Oprah. I mean, wow.
Right?
They're like,
That is awesome.
That's incredible.
That's great. I was going to ask
Well,
if you ever met her.
We're all big fangirls, Lonita, in case
Yeah.
you can't tell. We're all big fangirls of Lonita Baker.
Yes, we are. Yeah, and everybody knows you. I will tell you this. I want to thank you for being on this. I want to get you on Come Back Stronger, so you're going to be here for me again.
okay.
Absolutely.
That's a show. We got to hear about that. I mean, how you lived your life, and just such dignity and honor and genuine compassion and concern for people. But I follow a lot of news, probably more than the average person. I heard about you on the BBC.
Yeah.
I follow this, and the whole world, knows your name. So you've made your mark. A lot of people get into what we do because we want to help people. We want to make the world better. And you're doing it, and you see it in every client you serve, but the whole world knows your name, lady.
Thank you.
So well done. As a woman lawyer, I appreciate everything you've done. And you're doing God's work. You're doing the right thing. And thank you for making a little bit of time for us. I know that shake is probably melted. I'll buy a shake.
It's not melted yet. It's not melted yet.
Okay, we'll get over there and get that food.
Right.
But thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely, 100%. And thank you everyone for watching another episode of the Empower Hour, brought to you by the Empower Plant by Fasig Brooks Personal Injury Lawyers. We hope you've enjoyed this. You can always watch these. I think they're on YouTube, but I know you can get them on anywhere you get your podcast. So just search for the Empower Hour and the Empower Plant. And we will see you again next week.